You are listening to Mornings with Wendy on Spirit Radio. Well, on the 8th of March, this Friday, you will be asked to vote in 2 referendums to change our constitution. The first referendum concerns the concept of family in the constitution to include durable relationships, and the second referendum proposes to delete an existing part of the constitution and insert a new text providing recognition for care provided by family members to each other. And joined with me on the line, I have Senator Fiona O'Loughlin, who is advocating for a yes vote, and with me in studio here I have author Estelle Birdy, who is advocating for a no vote. So we're going to go to Senator O'Loughlin first. Senator, maybe you might start off with just giving us why you're advocating for a yes vote in the family amendment.
Absolutely, and good morning to you, Wendy, and indeed to all of your listeners, and to Estelle there also. The 39th Amendment, which we call Family Amendment, is about recognising a broader concept of family, one that is not just solely based on marriage, while also protecting the special place that marriage has. As it stands, our Constitution recognises only one form of family, and that is based on marriage. And that doesn't reflect the reality of modern society, where we know that 43% of children in 2023 were born outside of marriage. And the proposed amendment recognises that families come in all shapes and sizes, and they all need to be valued and treated equally. So this, I think, is a marriage equality moment for single parents and unmarried families and different family units. It's important that we all recognise and celebrate all types of different families that we have and support them. These are our brothers. Okay,
thanks for that, Senator.
Our neighbours, our work colleagues.
Okay, thanks, Senator O'Loughlin. Estelle, why are you advocating for a no vote in the family amendment to the Constitution?
Well, first of all, good morning to everybody, including Fiona and all your listeners. I don't think anybody would have a problem with expanding the definition of family to include, we all know that there are all different types of families. However, the issue here is that the government has point blank refused to define what durable relationships means, either in the amendment itself or in proposed legislation. So there is a great lack of clarity. It will not cover, and according to Justice Marie Baker, it will not cover single parents, because durable relationships have been considered before by the courts and in other countries in the EU, and they're based on intimate relationships. So single parents are not in a durable, intimate relationship with their child. It's a completely separate thing. Single parents and the children of single parents are already covered under legislation. It is completely illegal in this country to discriminate against a child because of the marital status of that child's parents.
So, Senator O'Loughlin, maybe coming to some of the points that Estelle made there, that does seem to be one of the big issues, just the confusion around durable relationships. What is it going to entail? And people saying, look, we've yet to see a proper definition of what this will mean.
Yes, I understand that different wordings were suggested, such as committed, etc., but the general agreement from government parties and the Attorney General was that durable relationship was really the suggested wording. And durable relationships are relationships of strength, stability and commitment. They're constant and they're open relationships as well. And they are about more than just intimate relationships. They do describe relationships between different families. For example, I know a situation where a grandmother on her own is the person who is caring for her grandson because his parents are not here. And that is a durable relationship. So I would say what Estelle is saying there isn't my understanding of it. And why we need to have this in our Constitution is because our Constitution should be a living, breathing document, and it should
so Estelle, why don't you come in on that this idea, as Senator O'Loughlin is saying, look, Ireland has changed a lot, there's lots of different family types, and this amendment, as Senator O'Loughlin is trying to say, will reflect that.
Yes, and that's absolutely fine, and we'd all agree on that. I myself, with my former partner, we had our first child before we got married, and that was a decision we made. We decided we wouldn't be married. The two things were separate in our minds, and it was some time before we decided to get married. Our child was not treated any differently beforehand by the state or by anybody else. Before we got married or after we got married, there was simply no difference. And our children that we subsequently had were treated no differently, were treated no differently from our child that we had outside of marriage. So that's a nonsense. Yes, we should cherish all the children equally, and the example she gave there, that Fiona gave there, is an excellent one of a grandparent looking after children. However, that still doesn't negate the problem with not defining durable relationships. Now, we don't know what this is going to cause. Chaos. What it causes for people who have decided to not be married, which we had done, it creates great uncertainty for them. And I'm very interested in what Fiona said there, that it covers open relationships.
Senator Loughlin, just on that, and I know earlier on in the week the group Lawyers for No held their kind of campaign launch, and Senior Counsel Cormac O'Doolan said that he said not even the Oireachtas will have the power to decide what durable relationships mean. So are we being asked to vote for something that your definition is a different even from our discussion now from what Estelle's definition is, and is it that lack of clarity that maybe has people undecided on this?
Just to clarify one thing, because I think I may have given the wrong idea. Estelle just mentioned, that I used the term open in relationships. I didn't mean open relationships, but what the sense of a durable relationship is, that it's out in the public, that it's not a hidden relationship, so that people can't say afterwards, well, I was in a durable relationship but nobody knew about it. So the durable relationship has to be open. So in terms of just going back then to what you're asking, Wendy, look, I personally would prefer if there was a clear definition of a durable relationship. I think it would,
because you didn't get a chance really to debate it. Sure, you didn't. The debate was guillotined.
Pardon?
You didn't really get a chance to debate some of the issues that might arise from it because the debate was guillotined.
Well, there was plenty of opportunities, to be fair, both within the Oireachtas, in the Dáil and in the Shannon, to be able to discuss. And there's been many other avenues outside of that. But it is the legal advice that has been advised by the AG to government, and that's why it's there. In terms of legislation, is very different to the Constitution, and the Constitution should reflect the values of a country. I think we're very lucky that the original drafters of the Constitution 87 years ago drafted in such a way that there is the possibility of, by the will of the people, the opportunity to change the Constitution to reflect a modern country. We've done that 32 times. We've the third highest number of amendments in Europe, and I think that's a really, really good thing to do.
Okay,
what I want to see is the Constitution reflecting a compassion and a value for those family units that are just not based on marriage.
So we're going to try and close off on the discussion on the first part of the referendum, which is the family amendment. Estelle, you might want to respond to that, and then we'll move on to the care amendment.
Right. I think the problem here is that the government, now I am assuming that it's not just bone idleness that they didn't decided not to propose legislation, define it there, or define it a little bit, at least, in the Constitution. So I'm assuming the best, that there's some other reason that they didn't define it. So that proposing a referendum, proposing an amendment to the voting public without defining what they're deciding on is just an insult to due process. Further insults were guillotining it, not allowing any proper legislative scrutiny. The Senator herself has said there she would prefer that it was more clearly defined herself, but she didn't get the opportunity.
Okay, I'm conscious of the time now. We want to get to the second part of the amendment to our constitution you'll be asked to vote on Friday. And that's going to be on the green coloured ballot paper, by the way. And this is in relation to the care that is provided within the home. Maybe Senator O'Loughlin, you'll give us your thoughts on why you're advocating for a yes vote in this regard.
Yes, Wendy. Well, the 40th Amendment is about valuing the care and support which family members give to one another. And we want the care provided in the home to be valued, whoever provides it, whether that's a woman or a man. At present, we have outdated language about a woman's life within the home, and I think that needs to be removed to reflect that a woman's place is not just in the home, but in the workplace, the council chamber, the Dáil and Shannon chamber, wherever she wants it to be. And I think that's important on two levels. So it's valuing care and it's removing outdated language about where a woman's place is.
Okay, Estelle, what's your thoughts and why are you advocating for a no vote?
Right. Currently, Article 41.2 reflects the UN's Universal Declaration on Human Rights, Article 25, which states that mothers are special and need special protection and assistance. That's the very important part. And the Irish state has ratified that declaration. And currently, Article 41.2 reflects that. We are given, in 41.2, mothers are given a special protection, and it's an economic protection. We are told that women cannot be forced or should not be forced out of the home to work in the general labour market if that's what they choose not to do through economic necessity. It's a financial protection for mothers. You only think this is sexist if you think motherhood is sexist.
What do you want to give you a chance to respond to that, Senator O'Loughlin, about, mothers that are listening, that are working in the home, and I have to say, I've had a lot of messages over the last number of weeks about their different situations where they feel, well, I'm already undervalued, and is this going to take away that value even more?
Not in the slightest, but this is basically updating a vision of family and of home in Ireland, where a woman or a man is valued in terms of the care that they give. And Estelle spoke there about the UN, talking about, I think it was Article 40.1 she was talking about. But in fact, the UN have themselves said that this language is outdated and basically is sexist towards women. I've 10 brothers and sisters, and in two instances, two of my brothers are the primary caregiver in the home, and that was a decision that they made based on economics as well as other things, because their wives were in a position to be able to earn more than them. So I think that, the role that they play needs to be recognised also.
What about that, Estelle, that the point that Senator O'Loughlin is making, that Ireland has changed a lot and fathers are much more hands-on. There are stay-at-home dads as well, and just different forms. There's different ways that people care for their children.
Absolutely, and fathers should be in the Constitution as well. They should be recognised as mothers are recognised for their work in the home and given economic protection if that's what they choose to do. However, that is not what was suggested by the government. That is not the wording of the government. What they have put in, what they've decided to do is ask us to completely remove that protection for mothers. That is in accordance with the UN Declaration on Human Rights. They've asked us to remove mothers. They're telling it's mothers and the home and an economic, financial benefit to women, that is sexist. And clearly it's not. And there is a Supreme Court case coming up. They're also conflating the two things, special care in the home and parental care and motherhood. And there's a Supreme Court case coming up that will rely completely on that economic protection in Article 41.2. That's coming up in April. This was known back in November or October of last year, and suddenly there was a rush to remove this economic protection. I think that focused some government minds.
I do want to ask Senator O'Loughlin about that, because some of the groups that have been campaigning for a no vote in this part of the referendum are actually concerned about the language surrounding care. Their concern is, does this kind of take some of the responsibility away from the government and put that responsibility on family members to one another, and therefore for those, for example, last night one of the slots on prime time was a young woman who has a disability saying, well, this is another move to try and take away my autonomy. What do you say to some of those concerns, Senator?
Well, family is the primary caregiver, just as they are the primary care educator as well. This amendment isn't about rights. That's actually in another part of the Constitution. But my understanding, and certainly government's belief, is that we want to make sure that care is emphasised, that it's valued, that it's important, and we have no doubt that supports will absolutely follow that. Can I just make the point from the Women's Caucus point of view in the Oireachtas? During the last mandate, the previous government wanted to delete the article about women in the home. But as a Women's Caucus, cross-party and with members of no parties, we argued that would take away, that would devalue the care that happens in the home. So we actually wanted to see some type of recognition of care, of how important it is for those that choose to stay in the home, and also how that is also reflected for those with disabilities. I'm a sister.
Estelle wants to get back in here.
I need to just jump in there. There's actually two parts to this care referendum, the care amendment. There's the complete excision, the completely taking out of motherhood, which is contrary to the UN Declaration. There's taking that out, taking the economic necessity away. And then there's the second part, the putting in of this so-called care amendment. What it does is it puts all of the responsibility for care into the family. The family is no longer anchored in the home, and all of the responsibility, now this is special care we're talking about, is in the family. That takes away the rights of disabled people. On top of being insulting to carers, it takes away their financial supports, doesn't mention finance, doesn't mention economics at all. And then, on top of that, takes away the independent rights of adult disabled people, disabled
I'm
citizens in this country.
So I just want to give Senator Fiona O'Loughlin just your final statement, Fiona, on why you are advocating for a yes vote on Friday.
Absolutely, and I completely disagree with what Estelle said there, and that is scaremongering among people and families with disabilities. Collectively, the two amendments that we're speaking about are seeking to ensure that our Constitution, the Irish Constitution, reflects our commitment to a modern Ireland which is equal, caring and inclusive of all. So I'm urging a yes vote on Friday to ensure that we have a more inclusive, equal and compassionate society.
And Estelle, your closing statement as to why you're advocating a no vote.
Okay, I've been kind of clear on the durable relationships part, but on the second part, on Article 41.2, our Constitution mentions he and him and his 117 times. This is the only part of the Constitution that mentions mothers and she. And that, we're being told, that is the sexist part of the Constitution. Not one politician...
Article 45.2
mentions woman, mentions woman, yes, in their right to go out and earn a livelihood. Secondly, I think it's pretty disgraceful to say that it's scaremongering. I have talked and listened to an awful lot of carers over the past while and disabled people, and they are all, to a man and woman, talking about how this is a disgraceful, insulting amendment to caregivers and those that they are caring for.
Well, thank you both for joining us on the programme today. If you've just joined me, I've been talking to Fianna Fáil Senator Fiona O'Loughlin, advocating for a yes vote in the vote on Friday, and author Estelle Birdy advocating for a no vote. Thank you both for joining us on the programme this morning.
Wendy.